Three, two, one, boom, and we're live. Hey Sarah, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Sorry for making you run around to get good Wi-Fi for this conversation.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You're originally from the US, but you are now in Australia and you've been living there for a while. I mean, tell me about that.
Yes. So I'm here on the working holiday visa. I've been here for a little over a year. So once I'm finished with my second year, then I got to figure out where I'm going to go next. Maybe stay here a little bit longer. But I absolutely love it here. It's so amazing.
Yeah, I am absolutely jealous that it's like super sunny and hot over there while I'm freezing cold here in Canada.
Yeah. It's summer here. And I live in Byron Bay, so it's always nice and sunny, no matter what the season is.
That's what I heard as well. Like it's just so beautiful, right? Like you got really everything you need, like in terms of weather and the waters and everything.
Yeah, I went surfing this morning.
Yeah. How do you find surfing?
Oh, I mean, I'm not good, but I love it. I'm trying to get better.
Yeah, so I surfed for the first time in Portugal and I absolutely fell in love with
Nice.
surfing. So beautiful.
Nice. Yeah. I live right by the beach, so there's no excuse not to surf while I'm living in Australia.
So before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience so they can kind of get to know you a little bit?
Okay. Hi, my name's Sarah. My Instagram is Sarah Went Solo, and I am 27. I grew up on the East Coast, about an hour outside New York City in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I lived in Los Angeles for about 6 years. And 3 years ago, I decided that I was going to quit my job and sort of live this nomadic lifestyle. And I've just fallen in love with traveling, especially by myself. And I just want to be able to do it as much and for as long as I can.
Mm-hmm. And like this is a lifestyle that a lot of people like strive for, right? Living this digital nomad kind of lifestyle, be able to sustain your travels and actually and live around the world in different kinds of places. What do you do that allows you to be able to live this kind of lifestyle?
Well, before I started traveling, I knew that I wanted to do this for about 2 years before I actually left on my first trip. So not only saving up a lot of money, but also traveling really cheap. I've been living in hostels right now in Australia. I'm doing work for accommodation. So I basically just have to work at the hostel for 16 hours a week and I get to stay there for free. And then on top of that, I have a second job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really all just about finding ways that you can travel and just do it the cheapest that you can while still being able to see and do everything that you want.
Yeah, that's super inspiring and something that a lot of people strive for, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, living in hostels is not ideal. I've probably stayed in over 100 by now. I would absolutely love to have my own room and my own space, but at the same time, I'm saving up to do another road trip around Australia, so I have to just kind of suck it up and live in a hostel for a little bit longer, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. So let me bring you back in the beginning, for your first solo travel trip. I mean, you went to Seattle, Washington, and from what I've read, it wasn't the thing that you expected to, where you're right away comfortable with doing it. Like it took you some time to get used to it.
Yeah, so I had this idea about 5 years ago that I wanted to quit my job and travel. But, I've always been a really independent person, but I've never really traveled alone.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of spontaneously bought a ticket to Seattle, Washington. That was the cheapest flight that I could find. And I found a good hotel deal on Expedia and just kind of figured that I would go for it and see what happened. And once I got there, I was absolutely terrified. Why didn't I bring a friend with me? This is so stupid. I don't want to travel around this city for the next 4 days by myself. And it actually took me about maybe even 3 hours to actually leave the hotel room. Right when I got there, I had to force myself out the door to go and be a tourist and sightsee and start doing all the things that I want. probably one of the best nights of my trip. I was sitting alone at a restaurant bar, just eating my food. And there are these two girls next to me who were being aggressively hit on by these annoying guys. And me and the bartender just kind of like, you know, we're giving each other the eye the whole time, like internally laughing because we could tell that these girls did not want to be talking to these guys. So finally, these boys left. And I turned to the girls and I was like, oh, wow, that was so painful. Like, I'm so sorry that you just had to deal with that conversation. And we all just kind of like laughed about it and bonded. And then the two girls were sisters and we just started talking and talking. We ordered more drinks. They realized that I was there alone. And to be honest, like we just started to get into these really deep life talks and we just connected super quickly. And they ended up taking me out around the city to all these different bars and we went out and it was so much fun. And I remember leaving that moment thinking to myself, okay, if this is what solo traveling is like, being these two complete strangers and having one of the best nights of my life, then okay, this is something that I could do.
Wow. I love that because like when I went to my first destination, when I first solo traveled, I mean, the first few days was definitely rough as well. You know, you were thinking like, oh, I could just go home on my own bed and be comfortable. But that was the whole point, getting out of the comfort zone. And then when you start meeting the people during your travels and creating all these memories, you realize how beautiful traveling solo is.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
that was a moment, like meeting these two girls and seeing the city with them was what like made you say, okay, I can do this. And I love doing this.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I wish that I had their contact information. I don't. we just sort of said our goodbyes, knowing that I would never see them again. But it was after that that I realized that I want to quit my job and try to do some more international trips. But I didn't actually do it for 2 years, almost exactly 2 years after that happened.
Wow. Amazing. Well, no, we're talking about them 5 years later. So if they ever
Yeah.
watch this, they'll say, Sarah, reach out to you.
Hopefully, we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, look, the rest is history, but I mean, you've done so much. I mean, 30 countries since then. So I want to take you to Peru because I think it's something really special that you did over there. And you know, what trip was that part of when you went to Peru?
That was on a 2-month trip around South America. So I went to Peru, Chile, Easter Island, Ecuador, and the Galapagos.
Okay. So let's start with Peru. You know, why was it one of your favorite places?
So I did this hike there and I totally pushed myself out of my comfort zone. I actually trained for about a month or two before I actually got to Peru because I knew that it was going to be so hard. It was a 4-day hike around the Asangate Glacier and you ended at Rainbow Mountain. So the final altitude, I believe, is about 5,500 meters.
Wow.
And actually, I only booked the hike because when I had looked at the itinerary, it said that we wouldn't be doing more than about 6 miles a day. And that was completely false. I think on the third day we hiked 10 miles and we climbed 3 stories higher than the Empire State Building.
Wow.
So it was exhausting. I have never done something that hard in my life. But I loved it. I went with a friend that I had made in Peru. She signed up to do the hike with me and it was just me and her and the guide. And you're just in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by mountains, glaciers, these crystal clear lakes, and everything was so green and lush. And I did it with this company called Flashpacker. So it was our tour guide was amazing. And I mean, to end at Rainbow Mountain, I don't know if you've seen pictures, but we got there right at sunrise and it was so amazing. And I just remember being so happy though once the hike was done because I was just exhausted and it was really hard. I'm athletic, but I've never really done something like that before.
Yeah. Was it a 4-day hike one way or was that total?
Yeah.
One way.
No, yeah, total, yeah, one way. So you start and finish in two completely different places.
Oh, so total that was more than 4 days then. It was.
No, no, yeah, you start in one place
Mhm.
and then you finish at Rainbow Mountain, and then the car you hike down, and then the car picks you up at the bottom there, and then they take you back to Cusco.
I see. And along the way, I mean, definitely it was definitely challenging. I can imagine. Like I've done some hikes, but never done a 4 day hike that high. But I do know that what I love is when I get to the top of my hike, and and everything was worth it. You feel the
Yeah,
air, you feel that freedom, that joy. So
yeah.
on your way there, was there any points did you feel like quitting or stopping?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. On day 3, once that day, that was the hardest day where we hiked the longest and had to climb up the most. I Every time that we would take a break, I would literally just collapse on the ground, and I was like, oh, like I can't go any further. I was just exhausted. And actually, when we went to Rainbow Mountain for the sunrise on the last morning, I was so tired and so over this hike. I was like seriously holding back tears
Mhm.
walking because I just wanted to be done. But once I got up to the very, very top
Yeah.
and was at the lookout of the mountain, and I just sat down, and oh, I was just so happy. One, because it was absolutely beautiful, but two, I knew that I was going to be picked up in a car soon and get to go to a hotel with a nice shower, a nice bathroom, and a big bed. But it was such a great experience, and I would love to do something like that again. But I think I'll need to train a little bit harder next
Mhm.
time and get in a little bit better shape
Mhm. And like,
before
did
I
you
do
guys
that.
like sleep in like tents during the?
Yes. Yeah, we slept in tents with sleeping
Okay.
bags,
I'm sure it
which I'm
got
all for
colder, right?
camping.
I'm sure it got colder as it got higher up, right?
It was cold.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was cold. But not so cold that I couldn't sleep. I mean, I just slept in my Patagonia jacket and
Yeah.
like heavy socks and stuff like that, so I was okay. But camping, I have no problem with. Sleeping in a tent, no problem. That's all fine. It was just the physicality of the hike that was hard.
Would you do it again?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I would love maybe not that specific hike
Yeah.
because I've already done it, but there's so many beautiful hikes that you can do in Peru. That was just one of them.
Mhm. I've always heard that the landscape in Peru is super diverse. And since you've been there
Yes,
for a while, you felt that way as well?
totally. I spent about a month there, and I did a trip with Peru Hop.
Mhm.
So you basically pick your route and they take you to a bunch of spots. I think I stopped in maybe 6 cities, and everywhere was completely different. I mean, I saw mountains, glaciers, beaches. Um, I also did a flight over the Nazca lines. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it was so that was so cool. I also went to Wakachina, which is also this little desert oasis completely surrounded by sand dunes. So I was never bored. I never felt like I was doing the same thing all the time throughout this trip. Every place that I went to was just absolutely amazing.
Mhm. Tell me about Huacachina. I've heard of it, but I haven't, ever looked at it into detail. Like, why was it so special, that place?
Well, I won't lie, the actual town itself
Yeah.
isn't that nice,
Yeah.
but it's surrounded by sand dunes. So you can go sandboarding. I went on like a dune buggy ride and all that stuff. So like the activities there were pretty cool. And you can hike up the sand dunes, and then you have this view over the city or the little town.
Hmm.
And it honestly, like, it looks like a mirage because you can't even see that the entrance that you take, the main road to get in there, and it literally just looks like this little town completely covered in high sand. It's a really cool sight to see. It's a party town too. That's why people go there, because it's also really fun. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting, and I'd never been sandboarding before, and you're right, it was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, those are stuff I want to try. I mean, such fun activities.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Did you
yeah. It
did you
was
ever feel out
awesome.
of place though? Because in terms of you've been to Europe, you're from the US, and now here you are in South America. I don't know if you speak Spanish or not. Was
A
there any
little
culture
bit, a
shock?
little bit. No, not at all. I mean, you know, I'm also usually surrounded by other backpackers,
Hmm.
but especially in Peru, though, I really, the people there are just so nice and friendly. The only time that I had a culture shock was probably while I was on that way back from that hike that I did. We drove through a lot of small villages within these Quechua communities, and I had a little bit of a moment in the car. I mean, you're driving through these communities and they just are in the absolute middle of nowhere. And we kept passing these kids on the way back, and a lot of them are just like walking down the street. Some of them are just sitting on the side of the road, and we would give them our leftover food from the trip. So like any snacks like that we didn't eat, bags of chips, apples, stuff like that. And whenever our guide would roll down the window, we would see these kids, and just a bag of chips like completely made their day.
Yeah.
And there was one kid that was sitting on the side of the road. He was alone. I'm not gonna lie, he looked kind of sad. And our guide gave him a lot of bags of chips and apples, and his demeanor just completely changed, and he had the brightest smile on his face, and he was saying thank you. And the guide told us that the boy, and I'd really connected with my guide on this 4-day hike, and he told us that that little boy looked like him when he was a kid.
Mm.
And I don't know why, for some reason that just like really hit me, and I just lost it, and I was just like crying in the back of the car. And it was just I'd never really been exposed to something like that before, where you're just, I mean, these people, I'm sure that, most of them are happy and okay and healthy with their lives. It's simple in these close-knit communities, but that that's their life. They're never gonna have as many opportunities as, maybe somebody that lived in Cusco had, and everything like that. So that was really probably the biggest culture shock that I had. But it just made me so appreciative for the life that I have, and that I'm able to travel, and that I'm able to see all of these things. And it also showed me too, like any opportunity that I have to help a community, help someone out, whether it's someone, that actually lives in that country, or it's a fellow backpacker, then, I need to do it.
Yeah. Wow. I'm kind of speechless, and I couldn't have said it better in terms of just how you felt. And part of, like you said, part of traveling is, the beauty of it is to see how other people live on the other side of the world. We're just in different areas, and part of it is
Yeah.
beautiful, but also you get to see the other side. And I mean, you should feel appreciative of what we have as well, right? All the
Yeah.
little things. So
No, 100%. It was a really good moment. It was a nice moment.
mhm. Well, on a happier note, I'm gonna bring you to Chile, and you actually went on an island called Easter Island in Chile.
Yes.
I've only heard rumors
Yes.
about it. What can you say about that? I mean, it sounds awesome. The name is pretty cool.
Yeah. So funny. I remember learning about this island, the Moai statues, when I think I must have been in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I always thought that it was this extremely remote, like uninhabited island that you really couldn't get to, until maybe a few years ago. I had seen, I don't know if you follow her on Instagram. She's a pretty big travel blogger. My Life is a Travel Movie. She went there a few years back, and I was like, oh wow, like you can go to Easter Island. Like I need to look into this. And once I knew that I was going to be in South America and going to Chile, because you can only fly there from Santiago or the Seychelles, I believe, and it's a very remote island. The flight is 6 hours from Santiago.
Yeah. It's pretty far.
And yeah, it's far, and normally it's really expensive to go. But I was there on their off season in winter. It was still beautiful and warm, but that's like lower travel time for them.
Mhm.
So I found usually flights can be well over $1,000. and I found a flight for round trip. I believe it was only 600. So I just figured that I would jump on the opportunity and go. And it was so cool. I only spent 4 days there. I got so lucky with the weather.
Yeah.
It was perfect the whole time, because it can sometimes it can rain for like 2 weeks straight there, which obviously would not be ideal. That happened to some people that I met. They were there for 10 days and it rained every single day.
Oh my God.
And usually like flights are delayed and everything like that. So a lot of that stuff I didn't really know before I had booked my trip, but I got so lucky that all my flights were on time and it didn't rain, so I could see and do everything that I wanted. Originally, I was just planning on touring the island by myself, but it's really hard to find automatic cars there. So I knew that before going, I was probably gonna have to drive a manual car. And growing up, I've never driven a manual car. So I actually took lessons, a few lessons back at home before this trip to prepare myself for 4 days of driving a manual car. And I rented my car and somehow managed to get myself safely around the island for a full like 12 hours. And then the next day, I tried to wake up for the sunrise to get myself there in the car, and I just could not get it together. I don't know what it was. Every time that I turned the car on, it would stall. I couldn't get the car to move a foot. Finally, once I got it down the road, I kind of got stuck on this really bad dirt road, and I ended up having to have someone else drive the car back to the dealership for me. And the guy that worked at the dealership was super nice, and they somehow managed to find me another car, but he basically offered to like give me a little tour of the island. He's also a tour guide, so it was such a great experience. And him and I became really good friends, and he took me all around the island for a couple of days. I met some of his friends, like met more locals, everything like that. So it's such a cool experience. And to just really be able to hear about what life is like there and everything like that, it wouldn't have been the same if I was just driving around alone. You know, I got to hear all the stories and know what his childhood was like and everything like that.
What is life like over there?
Oh, so easy. I mean, everybody knows everybody. It's such a small island. It's such a tight-knit community. Everybody, you know, shares everything. Everybody's just like one big family. And, you know, you can't really do anything on the island with somebody else finding out. So, you know, he said that when he was like in high school and stuff, you know, if he like skipped a class or didn't go, then his grandma would be calling him within the hour to yell at him, type of thing. It was so funny. But he was saying that he even tried to move and go to Santiago and study there, but he absolutely hated it because it's just like such a big city. It wasn't like anything that he was used to before. So he ended up coming back home. He liked being in the tight-knit community there.
Yeah.
But the island is super interesting. With the Moai statues, I mean, they're huge. They're absolutely massive. And they're kind of dispersed in groups all throughout the island. So there's a bunch of different places that you can look for them. I don't remember exactly. I don't want to misspeak, but I believe that the Moai statues were for specific groups of important family members.
Okay.
I think.
Like from generations past on the island?
Yeah. So the people had come to the island. They were originally from a different island in the Seychelles, but their island was basically sinking. Wow. So I think it was maybe 7 men came over and in search for new lands. And then they found that one, and then they moved the people from the other island that was sinking to this new island. But it's super interesting. Like there's so much history there, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's not the terrain. It's there's a lot of volcanic rock along the beaches. it's very tropical there. You know, all palm trees everywhere, and it's so cool. It was definitely not like anything I'd ever seen before.
I can imagine. And usually I think islands, depending on the island, but the weather changes quite a lot dramatically. Was that
Yeah.
the case as well on Easter Island?
No. For me, luckily, I had nice weather the whole time, but the rain can come very quickly and it can last for days. But luckily, that didn't happen to me while I was there.
You're lucky. And you met a
super
local who showed
lucky.
you around, which is like the best way
Yeah.
to explore the place.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I can understand why he wasn't used to the big city and he wanted to go back to the community, he grew up in.
Yeah. I think that would probably be really hard coming from some place that's so small to then going to some place that's big. And it's not like it's easy for you to get home. It's a 6-hour flight. That's probably really expensive. So
Yeah. So how many people do you feel like is on the island for everybody to know everybody?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure the number, but it felt small. Like it didn't feel like there were that many locals. But everyone was so nice there. I had to ask a complete stranger at 7:00 in the morning that was standing outside of his house to help me with my manual car because I couldn't get it to turn around. He was like, "Oh yeah, no problem." So I think they're probably used to having to help out some tourists.
You make it sound like a place we have to go visit, and we should definitely go check it out.
You should add it to your list.
Yeah.
But it's better to go in winter
because
it's not as crowded. They were telling me that if I go in their summer, that there's so much traffic on the island and there's just so many cars. It's impossible to even rent a car, everything like that. Wow. So it's probably better to go at their low season.
And learn to drive manual.
Yes, learn to drive manual. Yeah, all the car dealerships only have like a couple of automatic cars, and it's a lot more expensive. So it's definitely would be pretty handy to know how to drive a manual car.
So after Chile, you made your way to Ecuador?
Yes, made my way to Ecuador. Luckily my flight was on time. I had a connecting flight all the way up there. Yeah. And from there, I was in Quito for a few days, and then I had an experience in the Amazon rainforest.
That's probably a really special experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. Such a highlight on the trip. To be honest, I didn't do that much research on where to stay. I just kind of looked at a few lodges pretty quickly and picked whichever one seemed the nicest. It was the Sani Lodge I think it's called the Usani National Park. And oh my God, it was so great. Actually, while I was there, there was a big film crew from the Discovery Channel filming a nature special. So that I had to have picked a really, really great place. But I assumed that I was going to be doing all my days with like another group of people, but that's not the case. You only go out each day with whoever you came to the lodge with. Then obviously I was by myself, so it was just me and a tracker and a guide, and we would just go trekking every day in the jungle and find all different kinds of birds. I even ate a few bugs, different kinds of spiders, different kinds of monkeys. At night, we went out in a canoe to look at the caimans. And there was one that even kind of lives at the lodge, and it always hangs out near the stairs where you get on the boat. And it was completely out of the water one night after we had come back. And I mean, it's okay. It's not necessarily gonna charge, but I remember I walked kind of close to its eye level. I was higher up, but I walked in its eye level to turn on the light so that I could see it. And it like got completely out of the water even more once it saw me. Wow. And I was totally freaked out. And I was like, oh my God, can that alligator like get up here? And they're like, yeah, probably. So if it does, you have to run pretty fast. I was like, oh God. So that was pretty scary. But yeah, such a cool experience. I mean, just me and my guides in nature it wasn't what I expected. So
What did you
it
expect?
was, I just thought that I was going to be with like a bigger group of people
Mm-hmm.
walking around. Not that I was going to be alone, but it was just such a personal experience, and probably better. And I probably was able to see more animals and more monkeys, because when you're in these bigger groups and you're probably louder while you're trekking through the jungle and everything. So it was probably better that it was a smaller group when I was by myself. And I could go at my own pace, didn't have to wait for anybody, or didn't need to speed up because someone else was walking faster and everything like that. But yeah, no, it was so great. And we saw a lot of wild pigs. And there was even one time, I'll have to send you the picture.
Yeah.
But I was out on the dock taking a photo of the sunset, and this little wild pig just came out of nowhere, and it kept following me everywhere that I was walking. And it's actually in my photo, standing next to me. It's right by my feet. Yeah, so funny. I was actually scared that I was gonna like nip. I was wearing flip-flops, and I had seen one the day before, and it had tried to like bite at my ankles. So in my picture, I'm actually standing on a chair because I was worried that it was going to try and bite me or bite my feet.
I honestly didn't know wild pigs were in the Amazon.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I saw a bunch of them, but they treat them like pets almost. Like some of them hang around the lodge a lot, and my guide was telling me that there's a couple of them that they almost act like dogs. Wow. Because they're just so used to being around the people now. I don't know if they feed them or anything. They maybe a little bit,
yeah,
but for the
keep on
most
coming
part,
back for more food, maybe.
Yeah. So funny though.
What was better, the evening trip or during the day?
I mean, it was so cool getting to see the caimans. And we would get close, and I saw especially some baby ones. They really just like hang out within the grass, and you could very easily. My guide wanted to pick one up and put it in the boat and show me, and I was like, no, please, like you don't need to pick it up. It's okay. So that was, I mean, it was so cool. But even just the boat rides through the forest on these little like river canals, it was just so amazing. Like, oh, it's bringing me back. But I don't know, I can't pick. Two totally different experiences. When we went out at night, we didn't go that far from the lodge. We stayed pretty close, and it was just to look at the alligators. But obviously during the day, you get to see way more.
Yeah, I had another guest, her name was Saho. She also went to the Amazon, and I think one of the things she said was amazing was when she woke up, like during the very early parts of the day, and she hears all the sounds of all the different animals chirping and everything, and she just felt so surreal in that moment.
Yes, no, 100%. The sounds of the birds there was like something I've never heard before. One of them almost even sounded like a robot, like this computer sound that they kept making over and over again. And I remember putting it on my Instagram story, and I had some of my friends were just like fascinated. I have a friend that works in the music industry, and he was like, I want to record that and put it in a song. Like, it's so unique. But yeah, no, the sounds were just amazing. It was so nice. I was in this nice little lodge by myself. But yeah, it was so great. Such a great experience. I would love to go again, or maybe do the Amazon in Peru or a different section of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you ended your trip at something called the Bromelia Retreat?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah.
That was interesting. It was so nice to end it there. It's just a place that you go for like meditation, yoga, relaxing, and everything like that. And you don't really do much during the day other than just kind of chill, maybe journal a bit, talk with the few other guests that are there. There's one day that I did go into town and I did a surf lesson, but other than that, it was pretty chill. So it was really nice to be able to go there and just relax after 2 months of just constant nonstop traveling.
Yeah. We all need those periods where you relax and you take a break from all the
Yeah,
craziness of traveling because you're so excited every day. You're doing so much and you're exhausted at the end of the day. So we do need that
yeah,
break.
yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. And I guess the last part of that South America trip was Galapagos.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. Yeah, I went there. I did a boat trip. Um, I mean, the Galapagos is amazing. It was so cool. It was one of the bigger ships. I think there was about 100 people on my ship, and then you break off into groups with a tour guide. And then there's about maybe 8 people with you,
Hmm.
and they take you to a bunch of different islands, and you go trekking and see sea lions and all the birds and everything like that. It's such a beautiful place. I would love to be able to go back and maybe do it a little bit differently. At the time, I had never like scuba dived or anything like that, but I've heard that it's one of the best places in the world to go scuba diving and stuff. Um, so I think if I go back, I would probably want to focus a little bit more on that as opposed to hiking and stuff. But it was such a great trip.
Yeah. It's near the
Met some really
Pacific,
nice
right?
people.
I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, but it's pretty far. Like you fly there from
Ecuador?
Ecuador.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's an airport on one of the main islands, and it's pretty remote, but it's so beautiful. The going on a ship is probably one of the best ways to do the trip. You can do it where you're staying on the main island and taking day trips, but you don't get to see or do as much because everything is a lot more spread out than people think it is. So doing it on a ship is probably the best way to go because they go to your next destination while you're sleeping. So then you wake
Okay.
up and then you're there and then you have the full day and everything like that.
It's kind of like a cruise ship, right? Where it does multiple destinations.
Yeah, sort of a smaller cruise ship, but yeah, yeah.
Doesn't have like all kinds of restaurants and like malls on the ship. Like nowadays the cruise ships like have
No,
everything. They have like a whole
it
city
did.
built on the ship.
It did have. I think it had 2 bars, a pool, and a jacuzzi.
Hmm.
But there was only one place where you eat all your meals.
That's the place where
So
you
yeah.
meet everybody at the restaurant.
Actually, I had they assigned you tables.
Yeah.
So I was assigned with this older couple. They were from Germany and they were so nice. So nice. And yeah, it was really nice sitting with them. They had such interesting lives and so many stories. And I kept in contact with them for a little while after the trip, and they still like wish me Merry Christmas and asked me how I'm doing. They knew that I was moving to Australia. So it was really nice.
That's so
Yeah.
nice. I'm gonna end this conversation with your journey in Indonesia because I know it's one of the places you love. I mean, you stayed there for so long, right? 40 days about.
Yes, 40 days the first time. And then I actually went back in February for another 2 weeks. So I've spent a significant amount of time in like Indonesia, mostly Bali.
Hmm.
But it's so special. I love it there so much. I would honestly I would live there.
I've heard honestly so many things about, what you literally just said. It's magical. I can go live there in Bali.
Yeah.
Like, what is it for you that really, keeps on drawing you back to the place?
I think it just has such well, it is very busy. I will say that. So that is one thing that's a little bit annoying about it. If you do want to go and see all the sites and waterfalls and rice fields, you have to be willing to wake up early to beat the crowds. But for me, I don't mind that. But I think it's just the energy. Like there's so much people think that Bali is really small. It's not as small as people think it is. It actually does take a bit of time to get around the island, but I spent that much time there and there's still things that I haven't seen or done.
Mhm.
Still waterfalls I haven't been to, still hikes I haven't seen, other parts of town that I haven't been to. And it is very westernized, like you know actually, to be honest, the best way that I can describe it, if anybody's been to Byron Bay, it's almost a little bit similar to Byron, but just bigger and more of it. Um, and the people there, I just met so many good friends, and I love driving around on the scooter.
Yeah.
Like
Classic.
it's the best way to get around the island.
Tuk tuks, right?
Surf and I know I would, well, yeah, you can take those little tuk-tuks,
Yeah.
but most people just rent their own scooter and then drive around themselves. But the waterfalls are just insane, and you can surf, and the beaches are so great, and the water is warm and no sharks, unlike Australia.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And the food is amazing, the shopping is amazing, the bars are always so fun. There's so many places that you can stay out all night and go dancing, and yeah, it's so great. It's so great.
Basically, it has everything that you want to live in.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. But there's a very big expat community there. There's a lot of people that just live there and work online. It's more expensive in terms of Asia, but it's still a pretty affordable place to live. But yeah, I went to Bali. I did Gili T, Nusa Penida, Nusa Shenigan. I went over to Lombok, and then I did a 4-day boat trip from Lombok all the way to the Komodo Islands.
Did it take 4 days, or
was,
you stayed 4 days there?
It was a long journey. Yeah, it took 4 days to get all the way to the final island, or at least close to it. You don't have to do it that way. You can also fly to Flores, I think the name of the island is, and then you can do like a 2-day day trip around Komodo. But the way that I did it, it was with this company called Wanawa Adventure, and it's usually a lot of backpackers. And I got lucky with just such a great group of people on my boat, and it was so fun. A lot of them I'm still friends with, still talk to them, still in our group chat. We say how each other are doing and everything. But Komodo is seriously insane. Komodo Island and Nusa Penida are probably two of the most unique places that I've been to in all my travels. The scenery there is just, it's like nothing else. And the pink beaches, so cool.
Like, I've been to a place called Cabo de Hoca, which is near Lisbon. It's like the most western point of Europe. And like, it's a place where I could describe it to you or show you a video or show you a picture, but you have to be there, to live it, to live that experience and emotions you feel. Would you say it's the same for the Komodo Islands and Nusa Penida?
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, you can't even describe it. The terrain and the coastline in Nusa Penida, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. I mean, I'm sure you've seen pictures.
But it doesn't do
so
justice.
Cool. No, it doesn't do it justice. Yeah, you really have to go and see it for yourself. And even just the snorkeling in Nusa Penida, there's this one spot there where there's always manta rays. So cool. So cool.
And they're two distinct, very unique, like Komodo Islands and Nusa Penida. They're unique their own ways.
Oh, totally. 100%. I mean, Komodo, well, obviously you go and you see the Komodo dragons, which is really cool. But and the pink beaches, I mean, I don't really know anywhere else that there's pink beaches. I'm sure maybe a few places, but Komodo is the best place to see that. You go to this other place, Padar Island, which is just it's this island, and it's shaped like this. And you hike up to a viewpoint, and it's just so beautiful. I can't even describe it. So beautiful. Like things I've just never seen before.
Wow. Well, what a great way to end the podcast. I mean, this is such a magical place that I want to book a flight and go if it wasn't for COVID and everything.
I know, right? Yeah. COVID it's just the worst. Hopefully things will start to get better soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I mean, I really wanted to do a half a year Southeast Asia trip.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do that.
Amazing. Yeah. I spent about 5 months there. 6 months is probably a good amount of time to see everything you want to see.
Yeah. Any final words for everybody that's listening?
No, I mean, thank you so much for having me and letting me talk and relive all my travel experiences. It's making me super nostalgic. I can't wait until I can book a flight and go see some new places. for now I'm stuck in Australia, but it's a good stuck. I'm seeing so many cool things here. It's so great.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
No, thank you for coming on, and thanks for telling all your stories. I mean, I loved it. So thank you again, Sarah, and have a good
Thank
day.
you. Thanks, you too.